not denying that at all. I really struggle to see where our agency fits in on this.
May I?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Robert, this agency is authorized under Statute 33 of the Colorado statutes, is that correct?
Yes.
And Article 44 of that statute, does anybody know what that is? That's the Colorado Ski and Safety Act. Now, it may have been oddly placed. Nonetheless, it is under the auspices of this organization to some extent or other.
Commissioner Vigil.
Well, in my opinion, and to use a skiing analogy, your ask is way out of bounds to our mission statement, and we just can't do that. We're not a big enough agency to cover our ski slopes. I mean, if there's a wildlife incident, somebody poaching while they're skiing, well, yes, we will show up. But we can't go and patrol the bars and the drunks. That's
absolutely agree with you. I
Thank
absolutely agree, and I would never advocate that, Jim. I am not at all advocating even that we put the Gestapo out there in the ski slopes. It's not about that. There are solutions that are possible if you get about this many people in a room, in the right people in the right room for 2 days. You'll come out of that room with solutions that are workable, that are economical, that are not going to be burdensome to someone. But the fact remains, when I interviewed one of the police chiefs that was responsible for the domain of a ski area and asked about alcohol on the slopes, he said, well, what would I cite them for? And so I read the part out of the Ski Safety Act, and he said to me, that's Title 33. We're not responsible for Title 33. That's fish and game. So do you mean to say that you expect game wardens to go up there and do that? He says, well, yeah, technically, yeah. Do I characterize the understanding that exists or misunderstanding that exists? I don't mean to be adversarial, please. I'm intense. I told you I was autotelic, and that creates a different demeanor.
Other commissioners' comments or questions? Commissioner Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. White. Question is your ask, if you were to summarize that, is I have written down the ask is to attend a summit conference or a summit conference convene on behalf of ski slope and area or ski area safety.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the ask, that CPW would attend such conference?
Further, somebody needs to stand up as the host for that. Now, it doesn't mean to say they have to take full responsibility and hire more people and put them out on the slope to police, but it does mean they're a focal point. And it seems to me that the owners of the statute law would be the logical focal point. I've already had other people point in your direction. I know you're not used to this. However, someone of stature calling a meeting like this will generate attendance. That's what I'm looking for.
Commissioners, other comments, questions for Mr. White? Well, I suppose we should have some discussion here. I'm a little lost. Mr. White, I've thought a lot about this. I know you put a lot of effort into this. I've seen a lot more than the other commissioners just because of my role. And one of the things that just struck me is we've just gone through a very arduous 3-year process with the legislature. And as part of that, we got a lot of feedback, not just from our user groups, but from the legislature and what they wanted us focused on. And there's 10 items in that bill that came through. And there's nothing about skiing in there. And in addition to that, it just feels a little bit outside of our outside of our mission. But one of the things I also feel a little bit is that you're in front of the wrong group here. I really feel like this is something the legislature would have to deal with, right? Your gap analysis, I completely understand. But for us to suddenly go out now to take on skiing, to organize a conference, I feel like we'd be going beyond the mission that we very clearly got from the state legislature last year. So, I think we can take this under advisement and think about it. Particularly, I think it was very helpful that what you asked, I thought what you were going to ask us for was to become the ski patrol, and I think we would have clearly said no. Understanding what you're asking for is a meeting. I'd like to take that under advisement and think about it. As far as, but I would tell you that I really feel like the forum for you would be in the legislature as opposed to in front of us.
May I?
Absolutely. Please respond.
The legislature developed the Ski Safety Act at the time that ski and boot were in existence. And it took a long time to develop that. And the only reason that it exists right now is because of the ski lobby. The ski lobby, the ski areas wrote the thing. The legislature's tweaked it a little bit. The ski lobby has rewritten amendments to it as well. They've added in things like terrain parks that are natural terrain now. People create these things with bulldozers. You take part-time help and you send them out there with a bulldozer and you make a terrain park. They're not engineered. They're patently unsafe. I taught skiing for 9 years. I ended up with a fractured pelvis in a terrain park while leading a class. They shouldn't be in existence. However, I'm not here to say the industry shouldn't be in existence. This is part of the lifeblood of Colorado. We would not have Colorado the way it is today without the ski industry. So I'm not about slamming the ski industry, but the legislative pursuit of differences, I think, is not meaning to be disrespectful. I think that's folly. There is enough law written, there's enough forces out there. They just have to prioritize their attention towards family values. That's what this is about. This is about taking care of, can you back up to the slide that shows the family there?
That's fine, Laura.
I appreciate you indulging me.
You can find the slide. Commissioner Hauser, did you have a comment too?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. White. I'm sort of here struggling a little bit with this because as a skier, as a backcountry skier and otherwise, I sympathize, I empathize, I recognize what you've brought to us. And there's probably something there, whether it's an interagency conversation. I think it's a little bit of a kind of a who's on first and how do you tackle this? And to Commissioner Bray and Vihil's comments, I think what we're struggling with is our jurisdiction and sort of our mission and how to play in this. So I'm not sure where the starting point, whether or not we're a cooperative organization, would be one that I think would be worth discussing. But mostly I just, I would say thank you for your passion around something and probably moving a boulder up a hill and trying to figure out how to connect those dots. So from that regard, I certainly respect your intent, your effort, your travel and your time. And certainly if we can take it under advisement and maybe put our heads together and think a little bit about it, and whether or not it's this agency or making sure that we point you in the right direction or a better direction, I think would be our obligation at a minimum.
May I?
Absolutely.
Commissioner Carey, it's actually more like moving a boulder up a raging river with a waterfall in it.
Commissioner Garcia, I think you had a comment.
I just quickly, I'm a lawyer, so I went right to Title 33. And Title 33 is the Ski Safety Act, Skier Safety Act, is all about the duties of passengers, operators, ski area operations, and skiers. Nowhere in that act do I see anything that's directed at this commission or at this division. Is that fair?
There isn't something written in the act that says CPW must put their officers on the slope. There's nothing written in the act that says Colorado sheriffs must be on the slope. Nor is there anything written in the act that says police must be on the slope or liquor control board on the slope. But those are all stakeholders in this, sir. I don't mean to be disrespectful with my tone. But the fact remains, somebody has to stand up as taking leadership in this, and it is not going to be the ski industry. They deny the existence of the problem. And for good reasons. If we confess that people smoke dope and ride chairlifts and drink on the hill and there's recklessness and there's danger out there, then what happens to this balloon? What happens to that balloon?
I fully understand, sir.
Commissioners, we've got, Mr. White, I appreciate it. We will take it under advisement, but I have got to move on to some other stuff.
Thank you.
I appreciate you traveling out here. I appreciate all the effort you put into it. And like I say, I've seen the full extent of that.
Thank you for the indulgence of your extra time here and my theatrics.
Well, it's always good to spice up the meeting, so I appreciate that. Okay, if you want to...
May I continue to submit thoughts and afterthoughts from this?
Absolutely.
Would I send them to who?
You can send them to, we have a general commissioner's email, as I recall, Director. My email's up on the website. You can send it to me, however you'd like.
John Howard, you will hear from me. Thank you.
I imagine I will. Thank you,
Now,
Mr. White.
there are some parents here that have children. We're driving to Houston. We can't take the balloon, so help yourself.
Okay, thank you.
I'll put this back in the museum.
Next up on our agenda is the consent agenda. Previously, no one wanted to take anything off, so unless there's further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I move acceptance of the consent agenda as proposed.
Moved by Commissioner Bray.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Taylor. Thank you. Any public discussion? Don't see any. We'll do this by voice vote as well. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda is passed. Next up is Ms. Nims. Welcome, Amanda. Nice to see you again, Amanda.
Nice to see
it's been
you
a long
too.
process.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's a good concrete floor there.
I'm
Be
Amanda
careful you don't
Nims.
step over there, because that knee's slick.
Safety first. I'm Amanda Nims, the Land Protection Specialist in the Real Estate section, and the Program Manager for the Colorado Wildlife Habitat Program, also known as the RFP. I'm here to discuss with you the Director's final recommendations for the 2018 RFP. Let's see here.
I think Laura's got to bring it up.
Okay. For the new commissioners, the Colorado Wildlife Habitat Program is a voluntary program for landowners to conserve their wildlife habitat and provide, if they're interested, public access onto their private lands for hunting, fishing, and wildlife viewing. And we do this through specialized real estate transactions.
I think there's some confusion. I think Laura thinks the presentation needs to come in executive session. Is that right?
So I'm going to present 3 slides and then ask for executive session. The 3 slides will be general information about where we are in the program, and then once we get in executive session, we will talk about, if needed, the details, the confidential details about the.
So you'd like Laura to load the first PowerPoint, but just go through 3 slides? The only
There's one PowerPoint, and yes,
Okay,
if this thing doesn't work, I will set it down. So anyway, the way we do it is through specialized conservation transactions where either Colorado Parks and Wildlife will acquire fee title to the land, which means we buy the land outright. That's a very rare situation. We do it about 5% of the time. It does not happen a lot, and it has to be especially extraordinary property for us to consider that. The greatest tool we use is a conservation easement where a landowner agrees to for perpetuity, forever, bind the land by the deed and make an agreement so that doesn't mean they can't develop, but we protect what's important about their property. So the wildlife habitat, the agricultural parts of their land, the beautiful views, and it runs with the land. It's a deed that every landowner moving forward must abide by. And then a public access easement is a perpetual or a term-limited agreement by way of an easement that will allow the public onto their property for specific hunting, fishing, wildlife use. So, okay.
Better keep going to me.
I'm just going to keep going.
That's all right.
All right, I'm just going to keep going. It's been a long year. We've now gotten to the very end where we've got 5 Tier 1 projects that are finally recommended by, excuse me, the director and the leadership team. Excuse me. With a budget of $11,820,100,000. This represents just about 40% of the entire project value for all of the proposals that we received and have moved forward for funding. So the money is going a long way. 60% of the value is being provided by our landowners, other funding entities.
Amanda, let me just interrupt you. Commissioners, you do have the PowerPoint on your device there. So if you want to follow along that way, that'd be great. Are you on slide 2 now, Amanda?
Just wrapping up slide 3.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, slide 3 is the last slide before we move. I asked that we move into executive session so we can get into the details.
Any questions or comments from commissioners on the public presentation? Great. So we've got a request to go into executive session. Council, do you want to take the new members through that process just quickly?
Sure thing. So the Open Meetings Law enables the Commission to enter executive session for a number of reasons. One of which is to consider the purchase of private property for public purposes where disclosure of the underlying details would cause a competitive advantage or disadvantage to the parties. And another is to receive legal advice on pending claims or disputes, and another is to keep confidentiality where confidentiality arises out of another act, such as CORA, which protects details concerning private lands and maps and compilations of data, such as in the RFP proposals that you're going to discuss. The statutory basis for going into executive session for those 3 agenda items is 246402 3A 1, 2, and 3, all of which we're going to discuss today. In addition, the Commission will receive a brief status update from First Assistant Attorney General Lisa Reynolds concerning the State of Colorado versus United States Fish and Wildlife Service 2015 CV 286 pending in the United States District Court of Colorado. So with that, I would invite a motion to reflect the executive session items I just listed as well as on the agenda, which are the same.
Thank you, Council. Commissioner Vigil.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second from Commissioner Zimmerman. Thank you. We have a supermajority vote, is that correct?
That's right. You need 2/3 of 11.
Very good. Let's poll this vote then. Laura, if you'd call the roll.
Bray,
Yes.
Burkett absent, Garcia,
Yes.
Haskett absent, Hauser. Yes. McDaniel,
Yes.
Hepler,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Vigil,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Chairman Howard.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
So that would mean that Voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's turn everything back on. Okay, we're back on.
Thank you. This is Jake Matter. I'm here with the Parks and Wildlife Commission. It is November 16th in Burlington, Colorado. We just exited executive session. We're both back in open session, inviting the public to re-enter the room. We entered executive session to pursuant to the Open Meetings Law 24-6-402-3A 1, 2, and 3 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to discuss the 2018 RFP recommended projects, as well as to receive a status update from the Attorney General's Office on the State of Colorado versus United States Fish and Wildlife Service district court litigation identified as 2015 CV 286 in the United States District Court of Colorado. No decisions were made.
Thank you. Commissioner Vigil.
I would make a motion that we approve the director's final recommendations for the 2018 Colorado Wildlife Habitat Program RFP, and to direct staff to begin negotiating with applicants consistent with the recommended terms and conditions of approval.
Second from Commissioner Hauser. Laura, I'd like to call the roll on this so everybody has a chance to vote.
Ray,
Yes.
Burkett absent, Garcia,
Yes.
Haskett absent, Hauser. Yes. McDaniel,
Yes.
Hepler,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Vigil,
Yes.
Zimmerman. Yes. Chairman Howard.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Laura. Congratulations, Amanda.
Thank you very much. So what's coming up next is that the applicants will receive their letters to move forward in January, and that will happen in December after the Thanksgiving break. And then in January, real estate specialists will reach out to the applicants and the landowners to start the due diligence and the negotiation of the conservation easement terms. And then I will see you in a few months to start planning 2019.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you so much.
Commissioners, I just want to say a couple things, and then we'll adjourn, and I'll be very brief about it. The staff is used to the fact that I'm constantly pushing to recognize our soldiers and our folks on the ground, in the parks. I've always been trained, and I really believe that when you're asked to be in a leadership position, that's enough honor. And so we don't spend a lot of time recognizing the director, all of the deputy directors and assistant directors. And so it's the end of my first term as chair. I wanted to take a moment to say it's such a talented team. I feel like if I could pull you all into a business, we could make a ton of money together. And what's so great about it is to see the self-sacrifice of the senior staff and the middle management. They could all be making a lot more money, be doing a lot of other things, and instead they choose to serve. And every time I get to work with them, I see it. And so I just wanted to say, Director, to the once a year I'll give to the management team, I think you're doing a great job. And it's an honor to be associated with you. So with that, I also want to thank our new commissioners. Every single person contributed, which is great. I didn't have to call on anybody. And we really appreciate that. We'll look forward to Commissioner Burkett in our next meeting. And I thank you all very much. We're adjourned.